So the year was 2006. I was a freshman in college. I just moved to Boston, and I was known already as the circus kid on campus. The cat is gone already. And I got invited to like a meeting. Basically anyone at Emerson College who was vaguely circus adjacent. It was supposed to be like a juggling club, but I didn't juggle. A couple other people were working on different skills, so it kind of just turned into like the circus club. And I met this kid there named Alex who had done street performing and had done very successful street performing. And he was like, hey, you know, my normal street performing partner isn't here. Why don't we go out to Harvard Square and do some street shows? And I was like, yeah, sure, let's do that. So we started street performing in October, I want to say, of 2006. Didn't do a whole lot of street shows. We kind of cobbled together a show and made that work. But that got the performing bug into me. And so even after he graduated, he was a senior, I was a freshman. I kept street performing for the next 4 years plus.
Are you teasing Jack the Whipper?
All through college, then a few years after college. 2014 was when I stopped. After a couple years of that, after I figured, like, you know, I've gotten this kind of down, I was like, let's try doing Renaissance fairs. And I started performing at King Richard's Fair. I did a one-day audition for them in 2007. They liked the show enough. They brought me back for a full run in 2008.
Audience! If you would like to see the whip show, let me hear you say, wait. If you would like to see the whip show, let me hear you say, ha, ha, ha.
And that was basically my side hustle through my 20s and early 30s.
Bonjour! Bonjour! Je m'appelle Jacques! C'est my père!
2010, I graduated from college. I moved into working in radio full time. I thought for a little bit. 2010, I was like, oh, maybe I'll go into the circus.
Wait, Thunder! What? I need to ask you a question!
Maybe I'll go into radio. I was looking at the job market after the 2008 financial crisis, and it was not great. But I was able to parlay an internship I had at WBUR spring of my senior year into a job. And so I said, well, all right, I'll do this until I can get enough circus work to pay the bills. And I worked at that job for 2, 3, 4, 5 years and kept always trying to book more circus work, more performing work.
All right, here we go. You're not helping your cause, Paolo. Okay.
I was reaching out to Renaissance fairs left and right with very mixed success. By the end of 2013, 2014, I think I might have finally gotten enough circus work that I could barely support myself on that if I'd made that choice. And that was right when WBUR moved me into being a reporter. Up until then, I had been a writer, waking up at 2:30 in the morning, writing someone else's copy, basically like doing the work so someone else could read it on air, so that they could take the credit, which is not how I feel about that now, but at 22, that was how I felt about it. And I was like, I want to do the work for myself. But now I had a chance to get out of the office, not wake up at 2:30 in the morning every single day to work 4 a.m. to noon, to finally get to go out and see interesting things, put in the work, and have my own name, my own voice attached to it. And I liked that a lot. I wanted to do more of that. And I was like, well, you know what? Let's keep writing this. And so I kept writing that. Ended up working a bunch of pretty big stories, especially in 2015. 2015, we had the winter to end all winters, and I say that because we haven't had a bad winter since. On average, in Boston, normal winter, 40 inches of snow over the course of the 4 months, December, January, February, March. In that 6-week period of early 2015, of about mid-February to the end of March, we got, I want to say, I think it was 110 inches of snow total. So almost 3 winters worth of snow in 6 weeks. The city of Boston was not equipped to handle that. The region of New England was not equipped to handle that. A lot of bad things happened. Most notably, essentially, the MBTA, our public transportation system, basically shut down for 4 weeks because it could not handle clearing all that snow. And by the way, Usually in Boston, in between snowstorms, it gets warm enough the snow melts. That did not happen here. So we just had feet upon feet upon feet of snow. There were entire cars buried under snowdrifts. Actually, I remember my neighbor's driveway. I posted a picture. It looked like there was 2 inches of snow on the ground. No. It was like 7 feet, and there were cars underneath the snow. That was how bad the snow was. So I got to cover that story, and I also covered the Tsarnaev trial, the Boston Marathon bombing trial in federal court in South Boston. I was there the entire process, at least once the trial started. I was there in jury selection in January. I got taken off to go cover the snow, but then I was there March through the end of the trial. I think it was in June, and I got off that trial. I took a vacation, and my bosses came up to me and they said, "Hey, we want to talk to you about moving into the anchor chair." Long story short there, I moved up again for the second time in like 2 years, a year, and I was feeling pretty good. I was like, well, maybe this is my career after all. This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. I'm going to work radio. I was fully committed to the journalist lifestyle at this point, and I stayed in that anchor job, the midday anchor, from 10 to 4-ish. As well as we had national newscasts in the middle of the day, so you may have heard me, even if you were in California, Texas, Florida, wherever. I stayed in that job until 2022, so 7 years, and I enjoyed it a lot. And then we had a little something happen in 2020, and there was a period of time where I was the only on-air person in the building during that stretch of time, and I thought about what I needed to do to continue moving up the ladder at WBUR. I looked at how journalists and the media were being treated, and I looked at all the misinformation and blatant disinformation that was going around related to, what was going on in 2020 and 2021. And I think it made me a little cynical. I looked at the work that I saw myself, my colleagues more so than myself, putting into try and inform people, keep people safe, help people navigate a fairly unprecedented time, to put it lightly. And it was hard to keep that optimism that I'd always felt. I still believe very strongly in journalism and in public radio and in NPR, but it was hard for me to feel excited about that. And then I also looked at the amount of work that I needed to do to keep growing in my radio career. And that work did not excite me. I did not get excited at the prospect of doing extra work. Shocker, I know. And at the same time, I was thinking about going and making my side hustle, my circus performing, my Jacques Whipper side. I was thinking about making that my full-time job. And this was even before I started really blowing up on TikTok. And that excited me. And I knew it was going to be a lot of work. I was like, all right, well, you've had basically the same show for 15 years. You need to revamp that. You need to get in better shape so you can do this show into your late 30s and 40s. And all of this kind of work was work that I was excited to do. It was work that I wanted to do. And once I started thinking like that, I was like, oh, okay. It may be time for a change. And then October of 2021 happened for me when a couple of fans of mine came to shows of mine, posted the videos on clips, I should say, on TikTok, and those went viral. And I was like, well, can you make money on TikTok? Let me see. I've never thought about this before. My wife had been telling me to make an Instagram for years, and I was like, there's no point in making an Instagram, not unless we want to make Jacques Whipper our full-time job, and I don't think we want that. And she was like, no, we don't want that. We don't want that. So I started making a TikTok. I found out you could make some money, not a whole lot of money on TikTok, but you can make some money on TikTok. So I was like, all right, well, let's put it out there. And my wife is a photographer, videographer. She's filmed the show, taken photos of the show many times. We had a lot of material kind of backlogged going back, I want to say, to 2017 or so.
This is a show that actually grew organically about 7 or 8 years ago. A couple of performers. I am French.
Started putting it out there, and I think it took 10 days to pass the monetization requirements, which at that point were 10,000 subscribers, 100,000 views. That, I distinctly remember, took 10 days. And then it took, I want to say, 3 months to pass 1 million followers. And then Instagram went viral, YouTube went viral, Facebook grew steadily here and there. Facebook is always kind of my most ignored social media. Sorry, Facebook. And suddenly, for the first time in my life, and this was almost immediate, this was October or November of that year of 2021, Suddenly, all these Renaissance festivals and shows were reaching out to me, including shows that I had previously reached out to years and years before. And suddenly they were asking what my availability was. And I was not ready to pull the trigger. I was like, yeah, I need to make sure this isn't a flash in the pan before I go quit my stable job with, retirement benefits, health insurance, all that good stuff. But in the meantime, I was like, well, let's keep putting work into this. Let's try and build this up so that if I do decide to take the plunge, we can do it. And so for all of 2022, that was what I was working towards. So all of 2022, posting on TikTok, posting on Instagram, YouTube, not actually performing a whole lot. I kept pretty much my standard side hustle schedule, which was that I worked King Richard's in the fall, 8 weekends. I added a weekend at Maryland in August. They reached out to me, I want to say like 2 days before their deadline to submit applications came in. And I was like, guys, I don't think I can get you everything you need. They're like, just send us something. I was like, okay, all right. And then 2 weekends at Louisiana. So total 9 weekends in the fall, plus another 2 in November, which is also the fall. So we're talking about 11 weekends total, which was about what I did. And I had saved my vacation time over the years so I could always have time off during showtime. The response was pretty extraordinary. And I said, okay, now we need to book shows beyond this. And I had reached out to a few. Most of them reached back, and most of them I am now working. A few of them I reached out to, and I never heard back from. I will not name names. I distinctly remember when I realized that I was quitting my job. So, like I said, my wife is a photographer, videographer, and we were visiting family in New York City. Every time we go to New York City, it is very important that we go to B&H, photo video store. And so we were at B&H, and I opened up my email while I was waiting for her to check out, and I see I have a contract from the Florida Renaissance Festival for March. And once that came in, I knew that I was good. I had enough work. I could quit my job, make a living, and be good. And the funny thing was, I was actually on vacation for like 2 weeks when I got this notice. And I was like, oh no. That means if I get back, because I wanted to give my job enough time that it wasn't going to totally catch him by surprise. And I got back from New York a couple days later, I want to say January 1st or 2nd. I was like, I need to call my boss and tell him over the phone, which I felt terrible about. But I was like, it's better that I tell him and give him an extra 2 weeks of notice. Because I wanted to give them a full month. I knew I wanted to be done in February so that I had a little bit of time in between leaving WBUR and then going to Florida to start. But so I called him, I think on January 3rd, and I said, I'm giving my notice. I'm running away to join the circus like you do. I mean, they all knew what I did. It was not a shock for them. I mean, had anyone else told them they were running away to join the circus, it would have been a surprise. For me, it was kind of like, oh, okay, all right. You finally did it.
I'm Jack Lepiars signing off one last time. You're listening to Here and Now.
I left that job in February 7th, 2023. Drove down to Florida a few weeks later, and 2023 did 31 weekends worth of work, so we almost tripled the amount of work I was doing. And so far, so good. We're almost halfway through 2024, but we are nowhere near halfway through my schedule for the year. The early parts, the winter is always kind of the lighter time. It's the June through the end of September that is my busy time, and I was trying to make it a lighter schedule for myself this year. It's not going to happen. We've got still, I want to say 16 weekends in a row, starting in mid-June and ending at the end of September between Colorado, Washington, Maryland. Assuming the contract for Washington comes in, because I think by the time this video gets posted, the contract still will not be in. But we have a verbal agreement, so I should be back in Washington. We'll see. The one thing I do want to leave you with, as I ramble here, is as you think about your life, your career, the way you go, things can change. Things can be different. Things can get a little wonky. And sometimes you might work in a job for 13 years and decide that even though this is the job that you went to school for, this is the job that you have been planning on doing for the last 10 years, it's never too late to change. You might reach your mid-30s and decide that you too want to run away and join the circus. So, cheers. Actually, I want to leave you with one last thing, and I need to find this conversation on my phone. All right, I can't find the conversation, so I'm going to paraphrase. So that same guy that I did those First Street shows with, I remember he reached out when he found out that I was leaving WBUR to go do performing full-time. He reached out. It might have been a Facebook comment where he says, "Took you long enough. You never know what's coming for you. Enjoy the ride. I hope you have a wonderful day."
Toss a coin to your whipper, or maybe a 20, or maybe a 20.